In the heart of Accra, Ghana, Drive to Inspire Africa is lighting the path to a brighter future.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. Good afternoon. Welcome to another session. Today, we'll be discussing, our topic today is on the future of work. But before we start, I would want you to tell us where you're joining us from. So you can put it in the chat box. Let us know where you're joining us from. Hello, Samuel. Welcome. Samuel is joining us from Nigeria. How's Nigeria?
Hi, thank you very much. Nigeria is great.
Oh,
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
thank you. Thank you so much for joining. We have Botswana, Kenya, Clinton, Ethiopia, Liberia, Ghana, Uganda, Dubai. Okay, thank you all. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you. My name is Anna, and I'm the team lead for partnership and outreach of Drive to Inspire Africa. Our topic today is quite interesting. It's something that for a while now, that's what is trending. Everybody seems to be talking about it. And today we'll be talking about artificial intelligence, technology, and we'll talk about artificial intelligence. Now, AI is no longer a distant idea. It is here to stay, whether we like it or not. It is shaping how we live, how we learn, and how we work. So from automating routine tasks to powering creative breakthroughs, AI is transforming industries at a speed not seen since the Industrial Revolution. Yet, the question is not simply whether AI will take our jobs, but how will it change us? How will it change our jobs? Before we invite our speaker, I would want to take few ideas from you. What you can turn on your microphone. Let us know what you think about AI. Where you think AI will be in the next 5 years or 10 years? Do you think AI is taking over our jobs? Do you think it will get to a point we'll be in that robotic world where robots will be doing everything and humans, I don't know where we'll be. So you can put it in the chat box or turn on your microphone and tell us what you think about AI, your thoughts on AI in the future. And there's no right or wrong answer. So feel free and share your thoughts.
Good evening, ma. Hello, please, can I be heard?
Good evening.
Okay, so please, I think that AI is a great tool, and it is going to revolutionize the workspace and everything in some few years to come. So what I think we should be doing currently is leveraging AI to better our skills, because now we have AI tools that can teach us almost everything, whether we have an idea of it or not. So I believe that AI is not necessarily going to take the jobs of people, but people who refuse to develop their skills in a little bit of technology are going to find themselves wanting some years to come, because initially we didn't have anything that could create a website apart from human beings who were let me say coded, people who do programming and stuff. But now we have AI tools that can simply just do a website for you within minutes. So I believe that everyone should learn how to make use of the AI tools to better themselves, because I don't think AI can replace every work that they do. So please, that's what I think.
Thank you, Gloria. Any other submission?
All right, good evening. My name is Esther.
Good evening, Esther.
Okay, thank you. So I want to add to what Gloria just said. Yeah, in the nearest future, should we say a couple of years to come, yeah, AI is going to be doing some great work, but it is now left to individual also. You know, just as the world changes, the world also revolve around it. And we shouldn't say because AI has the ability to make work easier, then we should just relent. So we also should learn to do more, to search for more. We can make use of AI in our work to make work easier, but we shouldn't depend solely on AI. Just as you said the other time, that should we be open to see robotic uses to do our work, and we just relaxing and be there? The truth is, we can just not relax and just be there. Why? It will tell on us. That means we are not, because a scientist said we've not even used up to is it 10 or 50% of what our brain can carry. So now if we now start to relax and say AI can do everything for us, no, rather we should be the one utilizing AI to bring out the best of what we desire. So, and that is what I hope to see in the future.
Thank you, Esther. Esther, where are you joining us from?
From Nigeria.
Thank you so much, Esther. We'll take about 2 more and we'll invite our speaker.
Hello, everyone.
Hello, Janice. Where are you joining us from?
I'm Johnny from Liberia.
How's Liberia?
I'm excited. So Liberia is fine, and I'm excited to meet you all today.
Thank you.
Okay, so artificial intelligence, like all of the previous speakers just spoke about, is actually good, but again, once it's in the wrong hands, it becomes a tool of evil. So as much as it is good for us all, we should understand that it's intended to enhance our work. We should understand that with vast knowledge about the tool, it can make our job much easier. So AI, like people normally say, it comes to steal our jobs away from us, but I see it as something that we can take advantage of, and once we leverage on it, we can improve ourselves and do better at our jobs. Thank you.
Welcome. Okay, so we have some messages in the chat box. Says that the integration of artificial intelligence into our daily lives presents a dual perspective. On the other hand, AI offers significant advantages, streamlining process and enhancing efficiency. On the other hand, there is a valid concern regarding our increasing reliance on this technology. As we become more invested in AI, there's a tendency to prioritize convenience over thoroughness, which raises questions about the implications of cutting corners in our decision-making and problem-solving. Balancing the benefits of AI and the potential risk is crucial as we move forward. Thank you. And Kim Pulampa, sorry if I don't mention your name right, says, I think it's here to challenge people's critical thinking and advance our thinking capacities. Okay. And Samuel says, my thought is that AI will take up jobs in those areas where there's no creativity and emotional intelligence. These 2 areas is where AI cannot overcome. Our learning should focus on creativity where AI cannot do. In this way, we can control AI and influence its effects. In this way, AI can be taken advantage of rather than AI influencing us which is wrong. Okay, thank you all so much for your submission. And would like to invite our speaker, but I would like to tell you a bit about our speaker. So our speaker is Mr. Frank Amankwah, and he's the Chief Technology Officer for RAK Digital Assets Oasis. He's responsible for technology strategy, architecture, engineering, operations, and information security for the free zone of the future. Prior to joining RAK Digital Assets Oasis, Mr. Frank was the Chief Technology Officer at RAIN, the largest regulated cryptocurrency brokerage servicing the Middle East and North Africa regions. He started his career in software engineering and has held several technology leadership positions at Emirates Airlines, Amazon, BlackRock Asset Management, UBS, Goldman, and HSBS. Mr. Frank holds a bachelor degree in Information Systems and Management from Birkbeck University, University of London, at the Postgraduate Development in Software Engineering from the University of Oxford. Mr. Frank is also a director at Drive to Inspire Africa. Ladies and gentlemen, help me welcome Mr. Frank Amankwah. Mr. Frank, you're welcome.
Thank you very much. Very, very kind and warm words from you there. Hello, everyone. It's a real pleasure to be here with you. Can you all hear me clearly?
Yeah, we can.
Amazing, amazing. Okay, look, it was really interesting to hear the thoughts and opinions of some of the attendees on the impact of AI on all our futures. I think you were all spot on, right? AI is a tool. It's there to help us become better humans. It's not there to replace us. There are places that AI will replace us, whether we like it or not. But I think if we approach it from a point of view that it was built by humans for humans, right? I think we're decades away from where robots will control the world and we become subjects to them. So we should learn how to use it as a tool. Okay, but I'll talk a little bit about it as I go through my slides as well. So thanks for the warm intro. Let me just share my screen. Okay, can you all see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay, so before
Yes,
we
we
start,
can.
I also want to do a little bit of audience participation and engagement. I like where Anna started from, and I want to sort of continue from there. So if you can scan the QR code on your phone or go to slido.com and enter this, you will be presented with a screen that I will ask a few questions. I have 3 polls. I just want to understand who's here today and capture your opinion before I jump in, so that I can sort of tailor my message to your interests. Okay, so let me start. So on your screen, you should see the first question, right? The question is, what is your ideal work arrangement for the next 5 years? If you haven't started working, just give us your opinion on how you would want to work. There's 5 options on the screen. If you are working, you can maybe share with us what you're doing now, or share with us what you prefer to do. Yeah. So we'll give maybe 2-3 minutes, and then we'll move on to the next one. So, what is your ideal work arrangement for the next 5 years? What's your preference? Okay. So, hybrid and fully remote are winning. Keep going. Okay, so it looks like flexibility is very important to this audience, which is expected. The next is fully remote, which is becoming a trend, and we'll talk about that as we go through the rest of the slides. Yeah, okay, well, that's clear. I think I have my answer there. So the next question is a continuation of the discussion you just had. How do you think AI will most affect your role in the next 3 years? Let's see what the audience thinks. Okay, so I think there's a unanimous outcome there. Automating routine tasks, freeing me up for higher value work. Right. Okay, so that aligns with the discussion we just had as well. Um, okay, so I think that gives me what I need. So thank you very much for participating. There'll also be a Q&A open. So if you scan that, you can start adding your questions as we go along. And then once I get to the end, I'll have a bunch of questions that I can go through. Or you can ask them when we get to that point as well. Okay. So with that out of the way, let me go to my slides. And please feel free to interrupt me as I go through the slides as well. It's absolutely fine. You can leave your questions to the end, or you can interrupt me just by raising your hand, and I will assess me with that. Okay. So as it was introduced today, I'm gonna share my perspective on the future of work. I'm gonna focus my narrative or conversation around the skills, strategies, and the mindset that I believe, my experience, you will have to adopt to success in the near future. A lot of what I'm going to talk about is already happening, but we'll frame it around the year 2030. Okay. So one thing that we know for sure, right? And the only thing that will stop this is if the rapture happens and God comes and ends the world as it is today, right? Is that the year 2030 will arrive on schedule, right? It's less than 5 years away. It's coming, whether we like it or not. And between now and then, somebody said, I spoke to somebody who said, the kind of jobs that our children and those who are born, this year and a few years back will be doing have not even been named yet, right? We don't even know what those jobs are called, right? And that is, something that it's quite thought provoking. But keep that in mind as we go through this stuff, right? So the most important thing is that the old rules of engagement in the workplace are obsolete. The rules that our parents, our grandparents, work with. Are gone, right? We're living in a new era. So the old rules typically stated that, you go for a university degree or college degree, that will land you in a stable job. Okay, once you get that job, you just have to stay put, be a good employee, work for 40, 45 years. And then at the end of it, you retire, they give you a gold watch, and then you live on your pension. Right? And I mean that worked. That worked for our grandparents, probably will work for our parents. But in the world that we're growing into, things are considerably different. The averagely, employees aren't staying at companies for more than 3 to 5 years. Yes, you do still have some long-serving employees, but employees averagely aren't staying for more than 3 to 5 years, and companies aren't keeping employees for that long anyway, right? Because as the new workforce is coming out of university, as experiences are changing, they are preferring the younger talent over the older ones, right? So with computing, with AI, you know younger talent have more skills and appreciation for these tools. There are some careers though, and I call them the professions that your value as a professional grows with age, right? One of the ones I like a lot is the law profession, right? As you become a more mature lawyer, your knowledge grows, the number of cases you dealt with grows, so your value increases. The same with, medicine, right? As a doctor, as a young doctor, you're probably not earning as much as when you become a consultant after a decade or so of experience. But apart from that, most other careers, as you grow older, you become less valuable. And unfortunately, that is the case. So those are the old rules. Um, in today and tomorrow's world, yes, those old rules still apply. You still have to get a university degree, but getting a degree on its own isn't enough, right? Because the universities are churning out thousands and thousands of young, bright, professionals who are coming out with, top grades and are sitting at home because there aren't enough jobs out there to scoop them all up, right? So having that college degree alone is not enough. Obviously, you find a job to make it stable, good luck if you do find that job and, forget about long service, right? Because, I mean, some things are coming and going. A company that existed 10 years ago don't exist today, right? So that long service promise is actually even gone because the companies themselves, don't always last that long. So in the new world that we're going into, three things, hold true, okay? One, we're moving into a global work environment. Okay. When I say global, I mean COVID forced us into this work environment, where working remotely has become the norm, where companies are recruiting not just where they're based, but they're recruiting around the world. In the past, the company would have to set up an office wherever they wanted to recruit. But COVID forced us into this remote working mindset that companies have realized it probably saves them a lot of money just to hire remote staff who can live anywhere in the world, and maybe only travel into the company's premises once or twice a year. So that's become the norm, right? So that's the backdrop into which we're growing up as professionals. The second, I said it before, is yes, your college degree is worth something, and I encourage anybody who can to get one, right? However, that will not take you the whole journey. You have to pick up other skills that you might not necessarily learn in the university, right? And we'll talk about some of those skills shortly. The third and the most important is, in a typical lifespan of the previous generation, you will probably maybe do two or three jobs, okay? Each maybe 10-year, duration, and then you retire. But in this current generation, you're changing jobs every 18 to 24 months, right? So you'll end up doing quite a lot of different jobs. Okay. And unfortunately, if you just do those jobs and nothing else in your life, then you sort of end up I say you end up shortchanged, right? So you need to, in addition to building a career, right, you need to really find out your passion. Right? You need to really find out what makes you tick. You need to find out what your purpose is in life, right? Because that's the thing that you wake up to every morning. And trust me, every one of us on this call today has a purpose in life. Some of us have found our purpose, others are still searching, right? But it's super important to find your passion. And it's that passion that will drive you for the long haul. The best jobs are the jobs that don't feel like work. And usually those jobs are things that you enjoy doing, right? So you might still pursue your career, you might still get that degree, but look for that thing that gets you out of bed every day. And eventually you might find a way to pivot from your 9 to 5 to doing that, either as an employee, as an entrepreneur, or working for charity that does the thing that you enjoy, right? So these three areas on top of getting that degree and track record is very important to keep in mind. One of the things, I mean, as a mentor, and I mentor a lot of young professionals, professionals. I'm a startup mentor in the DIFC and in Dubai. I speak to a lot of people, right? And specifically for the future work and career purposes, I get asked some common questions, right? This I normally get from recent graduates or first time employees. They say, "Will I find meaningful work after graduation?" Right. The keyword is meaningful work, right? You probably will find work, right? But is that work going to motivate you for the long term? The next question I get asked a lot is, will I need to move halfway around the world, right? I have moved. I left Ghana when I was 19 years old. I moved to the UK. I lived in the UK for about 21 years, and now I'm in Dubai. And let's see how Dubai goes, but I might end up, if I have my way, going somewhere in the Far East. So, did I have to do that to get on in my career? I think the answer is mixed, right? By traveling and by being mobile from a career point of view, you get different perspectives, and sometimes your career accelerates. However, in the world that we're moving, where you can work remotely for these organizations, you might not necessarily have to travel around the world to do that. The AI question, I think you've all answered, so I won't go over that again. Um, and then, one question I got to ask is, how do I stay relevant in a rapidly changing job market? And I think the simple answer is you've got to keep learning, right? You have to, you have to find out what the trends are, right? And you have to align yourself with those trends, right? So AI was a trend a few years ago before, Open AI released ChatGPT. Now, all of a sudden, the world is awash with AI tools. Where were all those tools before ChatGPT? They were being built, right? The people who build those tools saw the trend and they prepared. The moment, generative AI became commodity, they were ready to put tools out there, and those tools have not stopped being built. Okay, so you have to keep your eyes on the trends. If you Google, what are the trends for 2026, you will see what's coming, right? You see what people are thinking, people are talking about, and you can align yourself, right? AI skills is going to be a huge job trend in the future. I always say AI has three pillars. The first pillar is foundational AI. That's what OpenAI, Claude, Gemini do, right? That's the very core, hardcore data science around AI. I think that boat has sailed, right? And it's quite expensive to build LLMs and to train them and all that stuff. Yes, you can still get involved in that. And, if you're mathematically inclined, then, you should look at that. However, there's a second pillar, which I call applied AI, right? Applied AI is, how can a small business or a medium-sized business or an enterprise use AI to make its business better, right? How could you and I apply AI to make us better professionals? I believe that's where the opportunity lies, right? So yes, I've heard your opinions about, what you should or shouldn't do with AI, but applied AI, I think, is the next gold rush. We're just scratching the surface. So it's super important that, yes, you're interested in AI, you start looking at what are the applications of AI in the different industries, okay? And what skills you have to acquire to be able to participate in bringing AI to, let's say, medicine or journalism or teaching or accounting or finance or law, right? All of these industries are currently being impacted by AI, right? Positively or negatively, right? So staying relevant is knowing what the trends are and aligning yourself with those trends. Pick a trend, pick an area, go deep. Okay. And again, it comes back to this, right? So back to the trends, right? What new skills should I prioritize learning? The best way is to find out what are the trends. How do they align with your interests and your capabilities? And just start learning, right? Watch videos, read books, go to seminars, whatever it takes, right? Because that is the only way to keep up. There's a lot more questions, but these are the common ones that I usually get asked. So, in my opinion, 5 years from now, three things will hold true. One, human attributes. And somebody said that early in the conversation, like creativity, critical thinking, emotional intelligence, love, cannot be replaced by AI, right? I think that's debatable, right? I've read about some models that can mimic human emotion, and if you interact with them, can actually influence your emotional mood, right? So how is that possible, right? Human emotion is all about the biology of the human brain and the endocrine system, right? So if you interact with AI and it can push your buttons, it can actually affect your emotions, right? So yes, we say AI doesn't can't have these attributes, but they can actually impact these attributes. But back to the point, these human values are going to be more valuable because they're going to be harder to replace, right? So your just being human is going to be valuable 5 years from now. But I think that's a big deal, right? So I think we should double down on our humanness, right? Double down on our creativity, critical thinking, emotional intelligence, helping people, supporting people, because that is going to be very valuable. And employers are going to look for that, those soft skills in people, because everything else can be done by AI, right? Everything. And I'm not joking. Everything can be done by AI. The next I talked about is the global talent pool, right? Companies are actively hiring the best from anywhere in the world, right? It's a win-win situation, right? They get, to pay less than they'd have to pay an employee who sits in the country of origin. You get to earn slightly more than if you work for a local company, right? So it's an absolute win-win, and there's a huge demand. When India uh, was leading, in a lot of my colleagues at work are originally from India. When I worked in the UK, a lot of colleagues from India. But I think India has matured, right? So the cost differential, the economies of scale are fading a little bit, right? So the focus is shifting, right? Now companies are looking to South America, Brazil, Argentina, for the same type of talent. Talent coming out of those areas are amazing, right? People are looking at Philippines, and people are looking at Africa as well, right? And this is the point I want to raise to you on this call: is the world is looking at Africa as a source of the next generation of talent, and you are in Africa. I would be super excited if I was in your shoes, right? Now the question is, how do you prepare for that? Yeah, I mean, we'll talk a little bit about that as we go on. So the opportunities are there globally. You don't have to leave your country to actually access them. There's lots of websites that actually list remote jobs. Yes, the bar is quite high, so you need to up your game to be able to apply for these jobs. And these jobs are not just in technology, right? They're in all sorts of different areas. And the last but not the least is, it doesn't matter whether you're an employee, you are doing your own side hustle, you're working for an NGO, you always have to think like an entrepreneur, right? And what does that mean? You don't 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 have a what I call a fixed mindset, right? Develop what I call a growth mindset. Means things can always be improved. Things can always be done better. Know that you can always learn something new. Know that the next person to you can become better, right? And your job is always to aim for the best and improve everything, including the people around you as well. If you come and work for my business, let's say, and you're coming up with business ideas that can make us more money as a company, giving you a bonus will be easy, right? That's what I mean by think like an entrepreneur. Don't just come and take a paycheck and go home. Contribute in every way you can, because that's what will get you noticed and that's what will get you forward. So there have been some major shifts over the last few years. We talked about the skills and certificates piece. Your capabilities will matter more than your degree. We talk about the global workspace. We talk about our mindset. Uh, about AI, right? So all this is happening. You all know about this, so I will not go into too much detail here. Um, the AI thing, I think it's super important. There's this meme going around that AI will not replace you, but somebody who uses AI well will, and that is the truth, right? I personally, have started my own AI journey. I started using AI in anger, maybe about a year and a half ago. I've known about AI all my career, but I really got into it about a year and a half ago. And I potentially have gone through 100+ tools just to know what they do. And I've selected a few tools. For instance, the tool I use to do this presentation, if you like it, is a tool called Gamma, right? Gamma takes your ideas and creates beautiful presentations. You don't have to fight with PowerPoint anymore, right? I use ChatGPT and Claude for all my writing, right? For my ideation, for my brainstorming, and then once they give me the outputs, I change it and put my spin on it, right? Because I don't want to spend hours writing, a 20-page document when I can get it generated for me, and then I use my knowledge and my preferences to shape it into what I want it to be, right? So AI is here to stay. And it's very, very important that everybody on this call takes this seriously. And if you haven't started to double down on your AI skills, start with tools. You don't have to do anything fancy. Using AI tools, learning prompt engineering, which is the language in which you talk to all the AI tools, right? People thought that writing good prompts were only for the LLMs, right? However, even the tools that you use, you still have to talk to them using prompt engineering, right? And there's various techniques. The better your prompts, the better the outputs, right? So if you learn nothing else this year, take a prompt engineering masterclass. You will not regret it. Okay. So who will thrive in the future that we're talking about? And I can guarantee you it's not just going to be the smartest people in the room. Okay. I strongly believe that, only the ones who continuously learn and follow the trends that I talked about will make it in the future, right? You also have to be adaptable, but you have to be agile, right? Yes, you might go down this rabbit hole, you hit a roadblock. Doesn't mean that the world has ended. You pivot, right? You keep pivoting and straight, right? But the most important thing, I mean, we all like to debate, right? I'm sure we can have a 2-hour debate on, the merits or demerits of AI, but taking action for me is the most important, skill, right? Yes, we can do research and everything else, but try something out, build something, you know, put something out there, with social media these days, you can actually build a personal brand just by posting interesting things on social media that people will find useful. Right? You gather a few thousand followers, and then you can actually start to monetize those followers, right? So taking action, I think, is as important as learning and adapting, right? So I think for you to thrive in the future, these three things must describe you, right? You must learn continuously. You must adapt quickly to change. You must know what the trends are and prepare for those trends. And most importantly, you must take action. I wrote a post on LinkedIn recently. It actually came from a reel I watched on Instagram. And it's summarized our career phases into three phases, right? The first phase is the learn phase, right? So if you're a student in high school and university, you're probably going through this phase where you're absorbing knowledge, you're asking questions, you're building lasting foundations, right? And that's where the degree comes in. Nobody said a degree is not useful, right? Because it by going through a 3 or 4 year degree, you learn how to learn, right? And that's very important because you're going to be learning throughout your career. Once the learning phase, never comes to an end, but let's assume that the phase in this model comes to an end, you start to earn. You get your first job, uh, you get your second job, you get your first promotion, you become a team leader, you become a manager, you become a director. Your earning grows as you go along. You start to create value, right? You start to build credibility, and then eventually you earn the right to lead, right? So that's the earn stage. Um, and then the final phase of this model is return. And return is not like where you go and retire, right? It's not about retirement here. It's about lifting others up. It's about taking people on the journey that you've been on and are still on. It's about mentoring, creating this safe space where people can come to you for wise counsel. And it's creating opportunities for the next generation, right? DTI it's a great example, right? The founder of DTI, is a classmate of mine, a very good friend. She's in the return part of her career, and she set up DTI, and we're all on board to try and create opportunities for all of you and the next generation. Right? So it's very important. It doesn't mean that these phases are chronological, right? You don't get to return and you never go back because it's cyclical, right? It's iterative. So you're always learning, right? The more you learn, the more you can earn, right? And the more you earn, the more you must return, right? You will do this until God calls you home. Okay. Um, but you can start mentoring even when you're in school. You can start mentoring people. And one fact is all the successful people that right? All the CEOs of the top 100 companies globally, by market cap. They are still learning. They are still reading. They all have a reading list. If you Google, what was Steve Jobs' reading list, you'll see it. What was Bill Gates' reading list, you'll see it. So that's not negotiable, right? You must always carry on learning. They they say the best place to hide knowledge is in a book, right? Um, so you must keep reading. Don't just watch reels. Read books. Most of the books are digitized these days. They're online. So make sure that you take this advice quite seriously. So I'll sort of pause here a little bit and say preparing for the future work isn't just about surviving, right? But it's about preparing to thrive in what lies ahead. Okay. Um, I'll pause here a little bit because I can see you. Are there any questions? I'll take one or two questions before I continue. Any questions from anybody in the audience? Okay, so let's carry on then. We can take questions at the end. So the next thing I want to talk about is, okay, I talked about taking action, right? So I'm gonna eat my own dog food here, right? So what are some of the steps that you can take to prepare yourself for the future work, right? And I've come up with five that I have taken and I'm taking myself, that I want to share with you. Okay. So the first step, and these are going to look very obvious, right? And forgive me if they do, but they're very, very important, right? The first step is understanding yourself, right? You got to go through this journey of self-discovery. At the beginning, I talked about everybody having to find their purpose. That's what I mean there, right? You got to become aware of who you are as a human, right? Yes, you're gonna do your day job 9 to 5, but you got to really know you, right? And you got to be unrepentant about who you are and what you stand for. Okay. Then you got to learn and build core skills. Again, it sounds obvious, right? But it's very, very important. Um, Once you build those core skills, as you go down the career track, you got to specialize. You've got to be known for one thing that you do very well. Yes, you have to learn a few other different things, but in your repertoire of skills, you have to pick one and become very good at it, right? Um, Building a personal brand, back in the day without social media was difficult, right? It was almost impossible. But now, with a LinkedIn account, with a Twitter account, you can create a following and share your opinions with people that you will probably never meet, right? Influence, it's called influencing, right? So that's also very important because that's how people get to know you. That's how you get to share your message, with the world, and that's how you get to become a better communicator, right? You have a captive audience who are willing to like or dislike what you're writing. So it's very important to focus on that. And most importantly, become a problem solver, right? The most fun people that I find working with are those who solve problems, right? The flip side of that is, those who like to complain. Okay. And when you go into the workplace and you're known for solving problems, you naturally gravitate into leadership, right? Because the art of leadership is the art of problem solving. It's as simple as that, right? All leaders exist to do is to unblock the people who they lead so they can be their best selves and do their best work. Okay. But you cannot be a leader if you're not a problem solver. And then the last but not the least, is the topic of today's presentation. You've got to future-proof yourself. So let's drill down into these to find out, the what and the how. Okay. So understanding yourself, really means, knowing what your natural strengths are. What are your existing skills? What are your skill gaps? What are the things that you must learn? What are the trends, and how do your current skills and aspirations map to those trends, right? And then ultimately, what generally excites you, and some action steps that you can take, because obviously taking action is a very important part of this. Is always do an honest self audit. I'd say once a year, right? Do a personal MOT once a year. assess what you've done in the last 12 months, right? Where have you grown? Where have you lacked? What have you learned? What have you not? What are some of the mistakes you've made, and how can you improve? It might seem unnatural, right? But do it at least once a year, once a quarter, if you'd like. Ask others for feedback. They say feedback is the best gift. It's free, right? Sometimes it's hard to take it, but if you master the art of asking for feedback, you will realize, that it will really help you become self-aware, and it will help you to get better. And then, build your digital and financial literacy. And we talk about that a little bit later. Digital literacy, AI, social media, writing, blogging, all that stuff. And then financial literacy, it's as simple as balancing your own books, knowing how to invest, knowing how to save, and all that is involved in that. The next step is learning and building core skills, right? There's a lot of skills that you can learn, and I'm not here to sort of preach to you the technical skills, because I don't assume you're all, technical folk, but these three core skills, you know, they never go out of date. Okay. The communication back in the day before social media, communication was talking in front of people, presenting, right? Or, having a remote meeting. But with social media today, you have a captive audience, I said, you have a whole community that you can communicate with and get their feedback, right? You get an opportunity to write, get an opportunity to use audio or to use video. So you have no excuse not to communicate, right? With AI, your writing is also taken care of, right? So however, your verbal communication is potentially what's going to become more valuable. I talked about the attributes of humans that will become more valuable. Your writing skills, the ChatGPT can write better than you, right? So that is no longer, a great differentiator. But the way you speak, the way you express yourself, right? The way you convey ideas, the way you share ideas with people, right? The way you facilitate those things, are very important, and that's what I'm mentioning. Problems, financial literacy we talked about, So these three core areas, in addition to all the different things and trends you follow, I think, if you feel weak in any of these areas, I suggest that you double down, and get some help and get some practice, because you're going to need these going forward. So action steps: take online courses. There's a lot of free online courses out there. Join organizations, volunteer for courses you care about, etc., etc. Okay. So we're talking about the personal brand, right? I talked about choosing your focus, right? So go deep in one skill or industry, be exceptional at something specific, right? Be very, very good at it. And the way you can be good at it is to do it for, as Malcolm Gladwell said in his book Outliers, do it for 10,000 hours, right? 10,000 hours is 8 hours a day for 10 years. So technically, they say you become an expert when you've done something for 10 years, right? So just imagine how much work that is, right? So if you want to become exceptional at something, do it a lot, practice a lot, and then obviously time will multiply that as well. Build a portfolio, right? It doesn't matter what work you do. Yeah. Portfolio used to just refer to photographers and artists, right? These days, even your software portfolio on GitHub is something, till today, I apply for jobs or apply for gigs, and they ask me to put a GitHub repository. I don't have one, and I feel so useless, right? Like, oh wow, okay. If at this level of seniority, they're asking something is missing, right? And I want to, and I will create one. So building a portfolio is very, very important, and start early, because the earlier you start, the more things you'll have in your portfolio, the more things you'll have to showcase. Yeah, and your portfolio could be anything, right? It could be code, it could be pictures, it could be whatever you do. If there's a way to capture it, do that and put it somewhere. It will come in handy later on in life. And then the last part about the personal brand building is you have to grow your network, right? They say your network is your net worth, right? It sounds cliche, but it's very, very important that you widen your circle of influence. We all grew up in a town or a city. We went to a high school, went to a university. Our friends come from these places, and some of our long-term friendships are built in these places. But unfortunately, those long-term friendships are not what are going to make you or break you as a professional. You need to go outside your comfort zone. Right? So the art of networking is very, very important to master, right? The art of communication, the art of talking to strangers, as cringeworthy as it might feel, is a superpower, right? Being able to walk into a room, scan the room and decide I'm going to join that group over there, right? It still scares me when I think about it, right? But I do it anyway. You go into that group, you listen in to what they're discussing. When you get the attention, you introduce yourself, you say what you do, and then you say, carry on, I'll join in, right? But then they carry on and then you chip in, right? And if you get bored, you bid them farewell, you join the next group. It's a superpower, right? And it's something that we're not taught to do from an African context. But having grown up in the West and now in the UAE, I've come to realize that it's a very, very important skill, especially in a global context where people are coming and going, right? You'll always meet new people and you should be able to get up to speed with them very, very quickly. So I dwell on this a little bit because, it's part of what has guided me through my career, right? I even though I still, you believe it or not, I'm an introvert, right? I don't think anybody believes that. So it's quite difficult, to start a conversation with a stranger. But I've learned to suppress that fear and that introversion, and I do it anyway, right? Sometimes you get ignored, sometimes you don't, right? It's a luck of the draw. Okay, right. Becoming a problem solver. Solving real problems in your business, your employers, or your communities. It doesn't have to be at work, right? It could be at home. It could be in your community. You got to think like an entrepreneur. We talked about that. Using AI, we talked about that. And then taking on roles, whether they are paid or not, doesn't really matter. Wherever they arise. A really good book on solving problems. This is targeted at startups, but the lessons in there are useful. There's a book by a guy called Eric Ries, The Lean Startup. I'd encourage you to read it. And then Google has a lot of free AI courses as well that you can use. Yeah. So opportunities are everywhere, right? And we I think we all have this tendency of waiting or looking for opportunities, right? There's plenty of opportunities out there, but sometimes, you know, you might just not be prepared to see the opportunities that are in front of you. And sometimes you might just have to create your own opportunities, right? Again, with AI, you can actually, in a few prompts and a few clicks, create digital products that you can sell, right? There's ways that you can research what is trending, right? What are people searching for? What are people looking for? And you can just use that information to create what they're looking for, whether it's a digital product, whether it's a t-shirt with a particular whatever it is. It's so easy these days to do that, right? So you don't have to wait for the opportunity, do your research and create the opportunities for yourself. Yeah. So how do you future-proof yourself? Never stop learning. Think globally. Don't just think about the town, the city, the country you're in. Find out what's happening out there and see if you can, leverage some of those opportunities. Uh, Find or start something meaningful, right? Passion projects, side gigs. These all keep your creative juices going. Build your portfolio, right? That gives people something to look at looking when they're looking you up, right? Before they meet you, it's nice for them to be able to see what you've done. Okay. LinkedIn is a nice place for building up portfolio, your posts, your articles, that type of thing. Okay. Uh, Teach others, right? I think, the best way I have found that I've learned topics and learned them very well is when I taught them when I was learning them. Okay. So find opportunity to share what you're learning with others. Again, social media, right? Once you learn a skill, you can, create reels on Instagram, get feedback. You can create articles on LinkedIn, get feedback. And you'll be surprised how many people will actually read what you're writing, right? You might think nobody wants to read what you're writing, but you'll be quite surprised. Create a newsletter on LinkedIn. I did that recently. I have about 1,200 followers. I stopped writing. I should probably start writing again. Note to self. And then I think what's most important, right, is giving back. Yeah. Um, yeah. they say it's lonely at the top, right? So in order not to be lonely, you got to take people with you, right? So as you're making strides in your own career journey, as you're climbing the career ladder, always look behind you and grab a hand and bring them along. Yeah. These people could be, people who are younger than you through mentoring. This could be your classmates who might be struggling to find a job, whatever you learned that got you the job, teach them. It could be your older folk parents, aunties, uncles who are a bit stumped by AI, show them, teach them, right? So I mean, it could be a charity that you support, whatever it is. I believe that the world we live in is one of abundance, and whatever you put into it, you get back, right? So giving back, I think, is very, very important as well. So there's three simple truths that I want to share with you as I come towards the end of this presentation. The first one is that your future is in your hands. Okay, no one is coming to save you, and to be honest, you don't need saving, right? You just need to take control, right? And taking control starts with arming yourself with the skills, the mindset, and taking action, right? The second is, your background doesn't define you. It doesn't matter where you're from, right? It could be from the most rural part of the country. And it was nice to see that a lot of attendees are from all of Africa, right? I was quite pleased to hear that, right? It doesn't matter where you're from, right? Where you start is not where you're going to finish. What matters is what you're doing and where you're going, right? We're all talking about AI, right? You could, you know, impact a life on the other side of the globe by what you learn today, right? Without ever meeting them in person, right? And then the third one is that your future starts today, okay? Don't wait for the perfect moment. Don't wait, until you're an expert at X or Y. Put yourself out there, right? Take action. Apply for jobs, apply for internships. Even the fact that you get a job interview is a good experience, right? So that's just something worth keeping in mind. So I took a quick look through the audience. There was about 50 of you at one point. And even though I couldn't see your faces, I was just looking at the names and some of the photographs there. Uh, and when I looked, what I saw, right, without seeing the people behind it, was a lot of talented young people who are going to write the next chapter of Africa's future. Coincidentally, you are all from across Africa, right, which was quite refreshing to see. I see problem solvers. Just hearing you talk about AI, the different perspectives from Nigeria, from I think Gloria was the first person to speak. It was just refreshing, right? Because we're having the same conversations here in Dubai, right? With my tenured colleagues, same conversations, right? Same opinions. So it's just refreshing to see that we have these people on this call. We have these people in Africa, in all the corners of Africa, the innovators, the leaders of tomorrow. I see people who understand that the future isn't something that happens to you. It is something that you create, right? And some of the ideas you shared, echo that same sentiment. So I see the creators of my future, right? I'm pushing 50. So the people on this call, hopefully younger than myself, are going to be the people who are going to solve the problems, of my future when I'm old and rickety. They're the innovators who are going to create the new apps and the new platforms, right? Some of the things that we're very proud of, like OpenAI, ChatGPT, will be obsolete in 5 years, right? Because somebody on this call and a bunch of people in Kigali and Rwanda and Tanzania will come together and build something that replaces it, right? And most importantly, I see the leaders, right? Because we all are on a journey, and every one of you is a leader on this call. You might not have taken the position yet, but you got to think like a leader, right? So I see the leaders of tomorrow on this call, and hopefully some of what I've shared will inspire you to prepare fervently for your future. So, my closing slide, I want to say that, the future is ready for you. And at Drive to Inspire Africa, we want to get you ready to build that future. Okay. So thank you very much for your attention. I know it's been a long session. I hope you found what I've shared useful. I think I'll pause now, hand over to Arnold to run the Q&A. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Frank. If you want to ask a question, the floor is open. If you want to put it in the chat box too, you can. So the floor is open for questions. Any question you have. So we have a question in the chat. It says, how do you catch up in a world that prefers fast-paced work compared to quality? And the second question is, how do you learn what you don't fully understand the implications, especially in a place where people are tech illiterate?
So I'll take the first question, right? So how do you catch up in a fast-paced world?
Yeah.
That was the first question, right?
Yes.
So look, I think
quality.
that compared to quality, right?
Yeah.
I think the question is, is it ever okay to drop the quality bar? Yeah. And I and I think that's a question that we all have to answer in our own small way, right? I believe that anything that is worth doing well, right? So if you have to slow down to go faster, that is my preference, right? I hate to just follow the trend or do things because everybody's doing it or because the crowd thinks is the right thing to do, right? However, you've got to take it in context, right? If there's a deadline, okay? If there's a closing date, if there's a fine for not meeting a particular, date, then, going fast becomes something that, you can't avoid. It doesn't mean you should cut corners, but then you'll have to find a way to still keep the quality bar high, but meet that deadline. If it's something that you're doing for yourself, right? You're learning a new tool, then take your glorious time. But obviously don't take too long because you gotta take action, right? So I think it's a very subjective question, but the way I counter it is, anything that is worth doing is worth doing well. Okay. If you commit to it, take as long as you need to take. If there's a deadline, don't get fined. Okay. So that's the answer to the first question. The second one was, could you remind me the second question again?
How do you learn when you don't fully understand the implications, especially in a place where people are tech illiterate?
So how do you learn when you don't understand the implications?
Yeah.
Let me process that for a second. Right? So look, I like to look at learning as a multi-stage process, right? You start off not knowing what you don't know. Huh? So you're oblivious, right? Then you get to know what you don't know because you heard somebody talk about it or somebody asked a question and you couldn't answer. So you become aware. Okay. Then you go from knowing what you don't know, right, to learning, right? So now you know what you know. Okay. And that's where, I say you're a novice, right? You just read the book or you just listen to the audio, whatever else. Then as you practice, you become oblivious to the fact that you know, right? It becomes part of you, right? So what's important is exposing yourself to enough different perspectives so that you become aware of what you don't know. Yeah, that's the first stage. And you talked about something about, in an area where people are tech illiterate, right? So you got to leave, go to an area where they're tech literate. Yeah, because if they're tech illiterate and you know they're tech illiterate, what are you doing there, right? So go surround yourself with people who know what you don't know, right? That will make you aware. Okay. Then you go on the journey of learning where you go from novice, right? To, I say novice to advanced, beginner or learner, right? So now you know the fundamentals, right? Then you go from there to competent. You can now use the knowledge with very little guidance. Okay. Then you go from competent to proficient. Okay, you use it for a period. You're competent is becoming, a second nature, right? Then you go from proficient to expert. You're gonna have done it for about 10 years. Okay. So the first step, and we talk about action, is leave the place where you don't know what you don't know, right? Leave that comfort zone. Okay. I wrote an article on LinkedIn once. I was feeling a little bit low myself. I don't know, probably some work politics. And I went to Claude and I said, this is how I'm feeling. Help me write a post that will lift me up, right? And the title of the post was, when a cat wants to become a lion, it should stop eating rats. Yeah. When a cat wants to become a lion, it should stop eating rats. You need to get outside that comfort zone. Yeah. So back to answer that question, specifically for the tech illiterate environment, leave it. Yeah. Go and hang out where people are tech literate. You'll become aware of what you don't know. And then that becomes your launch pad to gain your knowledge. Thank you.
Thank you. We have another question. If you want to integrate AI into medicine as a novice, where do you start from? What are some of the tools you can start getting conversant with? And the
That's a
second,
very, very good one.
the second question is it okay to take on different things as you're trying to figure out what you'd want to specialize in while building your personal brand? Yeah.
Okay, so I'll take the first one. Specifically about medicine. That's a very nice question. I like it. So look, the medical field is broad. Okay, it's very, very broad. If you want to try out your AI chops, right? Here's my challenge to you. There's a lot of tools out there, right? Lovable, Base 44, Creator XYZ, right? These are agents that create software for you. Okay. So I'm going to give you a person who has a question. I'm going to give you a challenge. Go to any of these tools, and in the prompt, put exactly the question you've asked me, and see what happens. Right? It's that easy. Yeah. Because I could tell you anything, right? But I won't. I actually want you to take action. I want you to go find out for yourself. Right? But if there's one tool that I'd encourage you to build as a trial, every time you go and visit a doctor, the doctor will ask you, what's wrong? Okay. And you tell them your symptoms. Yeah. And tell doctor, I woke up this morning, my waist was paining me, my this, my that, right? And the doctor will ask you a few more questions. I've actually seen my doctor in the UK. I remember one day he then went to Google. Yeah, he went to Google and Googled my symptoms. And I was like, oh my God, these doctors are in trouble when AI comes, right? But what I'm trying to raise is you can build a simple tool that, using the voice recorder of your favorite app to record the conversation between you and your doctor, right? And diagnose what might be wrong with you. Okay. I actually have a friend who built a company around this, right? A tool that they provide to doctors, and the tool runs on an iPad or a phone, and it just listens to your conversation with your doctor. And then at the end, it gives you a nice write-up of what the conversation is, what the symptoms might be, what the treatments could be. And then the doctor just has to, check it and make sure they're happy, and then they give it to you, right? So that's an idea. However, I'll encourage you to go to one of these tools. I'll mention them again. Base 44, I think. Lovable. CreateAnything.com. Go to the same tool, sign up for a free account, and type the same question you asked. What can I create in medical with AI? And see what it does for you. You'll be blown away. I don't know what you'll get. You'll all get something different, right? But try it out. And then you'll see what's possible with the right tools in your hands with AI. Okay. Thank you.
The second
What was the second question?
Yeah, is it okay to take on different things as you're trying to figure out what you'd want to specialize in while building your personal brand?
Of course, you have to start with many, right? Because you don't know which one is going to stick. Okay. Um, you know, I think the question is, do you do them sequentially? Do you do them in parallel? The answer is, how much time do you have? Okay. Um, you know, I would use, obviously using some of my time to read and relax and sleep, I would use any spare time I have to be exploring with the different things that you want to do. So yeah, so there's no, I mean, I wouldn't go for 10 things at once. I'd say, pick three of your list, spend some time, try them in parallel. You'll have to give them some time to really know whether, you you will know whether you enjoy it or not, right? That's the first thing. Whether you're good at it will take time. But yes, it's absolutely fine to have more than one thing going, or you can decide to do them sequentially, right? So pick one thing, spend 2 weeks on it. If you enjoy it, carry on. If you don't, pick another thing. I think we're all different, right? So I don't think there's one right answer. What I would do is I like to work on one thing at a time, right? I like to focus. Yeah. So that's what I would do, right? I focus, I take one thing, I go in deep, then I park it, right? Then I pick something else, right? So yeah, that's what I'd recommend if I was going to give advice.
Thank you. Any more questions? You can drop it in the chat box or you can unmute yourself and ask your questions.
Hello, Frank. Prince here. Insightful presentation. My question
Thank
is,
you, Prince.
so usually Africa is behind. We're always trying to catch up with technology. How do you think we can get ahead of AI this time? Africa taking the lead. How do you think we can get into that position?
So that's a wonderful question, and I think I touched on it briefly at the beginning, where I talked about the three pillars of AI. I guess that's my opinion, right? Nobody's written about this yet. So the first pillar, I talked about the foundational AI, right, which is traditional building LLMs and models, right? Very technical area, and it's quite resource intensive. It needs a lot of investments and all that stuff, right? So I don't think that boat has sailed, but Africa has other problems. I don't think governments are going to invest like how the UAE is investing in AI to be able to play in that space, at least not in the next decade, let's say. Okay. So the door's not shut, but I think that boat has sailed. That's my opinion. The second is what I call applied AI. Every company in the world is going to be impacted by AI. Small, medium, large enterprise. Okay. AI is powered by data. Okay. Every company generates a lot of data depending on their size. Data about their customers, about their transactions, about their orders. And this data has to be put in a particular shape and format before it can be used to train AI models. Okay. So if there's going to be this huge demand for applied AI services, let's call them that way, then there's going to be a huge demand for these skills to transform raw data into a format that we can use to train the foundational models. Okay. And that's applied AI, right? So people with skills of getting that data pipeline going are going to be in high demand. The people who can use those data pipelines to train a chat GPT or a Claude or a Llama or a Gemini foundation model for a particular company's use case will be in high demand, right? People who can, create, agentic AI systems that connect different tools and solve a particular problem very well will be in high demand. You see? So anybody who's going to serve in this applied AI space, it doesn't matter which part, whether it's the data pipeline, whether it's the training of the foundation models, whether it's the agentic AI, all of those things are going to be in high demand. There's already a shortage of professionals. I think that's our opportunity as Africans. At least I'm focused on that area, right? That's where we're really going to shine, right? Because you don't have to be in, Singapore or in Dubai to do that work. You can do it remotely. It's all cloud-based, right? So if you ask me, how are we going to play in this space? It's in this space, right? The third pillar is what I call ethical AI, right? There's still people are still scratching their heads, is AI, is it fair? Is it this? Is it that? Explainable AI, AI IP, AI law, all of that, I call it fluff. is going to be very, very important, because when AI starts to run the world, somebody must police it, right? So that's also another area. That's very early, right? These people are still don't know what it's about. But that's also an area that, we can play in because it's in the future, right? So I think, for the African young up and coming tech savvy population, if you want to play in AI, it's in the applied space. You can still play in the foundational space, but you probably go and work for ChatGPT or Facebook or whatever, right? Yeah, go do that, right? But if I'm going to be practical, without the resources, you can play comfortably in the applied space and make a lot of money doing it. Thank you, Prince.
Any more? We have some few minutes. We can. Yes, Mavis, go ahead.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Mr. Frank, for such an eye-opening conversation this evening. I would like to ask a question, and this is because you have all the experiences. You've been a student before, you've been a mentee before. As young people who are trying to pursue a career, I would like to know if there's, certain mistakes that we make when preparing for the future or when preparing for our future careers, and how do we avoid these mistakes as we, climb the ladder of careers?
That's a great question, and I'm going to do something very cheeky. I have on the call with me a few of my esteemed colleagues, and one of my favorite managers is actually here. John Serios. Good evening, where you are.
Hello, Frankie boy.
How are you doing, Johnny boy?
I'm good, mate. I'm very well, thank you.
Amazing, amazing. Do you want to take Mavis's question?
I will, Mavis. You can't avoid mistakes. The art is to learn from those mistakes and not repeat those mistakes. Everyone's going to make mistakes. I've been doing this for many, many years, and I still make mistakes. Frank and I work together. We make mistakes together, right? But the important thing is to recognize those mistakes. Don't beat yourself up when you make mistakes. Just the art is to learn from those mistakes.
Thank you, John. And, is there anything else you want to add? I mean, you've got tons of experience. John was one of my first managers when I started my career. We've been good friends ever since. So, John, yeah, anything else you want to add
Not really,
what I've
actually.
said?
I mean, I dialed in on this to listen in because, again, just you, Frank, we haven't spoken for ages, right? So I really listened in to see how you're getting on. But everything you said there is so true. I think you've touched on it right. Don't wait for opportunities. Make the opportunities, because you'll be waiting forever. One of the things that I learned late in my career was I used to work real hard, try to be the best guy at everything, and wait for that to be recognized to then be rewarded for the fact. That's a mistake. If you plan, set your sights out, execute, give yourself basically, or something I learned late in life is give yourself like a 3-year plan. What do you want to do in 3 years? Review where you are. And if you can't see where you're going to be in the 4th year, time to move on and recreate yourself.
Yeah, John gave me that idea. What was it? How many years? 20 years ago? That's a long time, John.
It's gotta be, yeah. Gotta be, definitely, yeah.
That's amazing, amazing. Yes, I remember that advice, same advice that John gave me 20 years ago, and it's taking me. Thanks, John. Really good to see you.
It's a little bit different, right? Because again, if you're a contractor, you've got that flexibility of recreating yourself again and again and again. But if you guys are looking for a long-term career, my advice is you by the time you've got to the 3rd year of your career, you need to start planning your next move. And if you can't see in that 3rd year, if you can't see where you're going to be in that 4th year, it's time to move either into a different role in the same company or leave the company, reinvent yourself. And you're never really starting again, right? Because you're taking that knowledge with you. So it's not a case of starting again. It's always about going forward.
Amazing. Thank you very much, John. Another
No
of our
worries.
very good friends, childhood friend, Kwajo Ansasam. Is that you? You're on mute if you're talking, Kwajo. Or maybe he left. He left. So I grew up with Kwajo as well. I've known him since I was 11 years old. Kwajo, are you going to come off mute and say a few words? Maybe he's not. He's not at his desk. Okay, look, I mean, amazing. Thank you very much, John. Anna, over to you.
Okay, we have a question here. Says, what is
Sorry,
the
Frank. I was on mute, as you said.
There he is. There he is. Kwajo,
Yes,
long
sir.
time no
Yes, sir.
speak. Good to
Many
see you.
years.
You have a few words to share with our young
Nah, it's.
colleague.
I mean, it's been interesting to hear what we've been talking about. I've been answering some questions in the chat as well.
Amazing,
I
amazing.
mean, look, guys, don't be afraid. AI is coming. Learn it. Learn about it. Learn how to use it. See how best you can use it to build yourself, help others. It's a tool for us. Look, I'm in IT. I used to be very skeptical of AI myself. I used to say, look, man, in a few years' time, well, already my hair is white and my beard is white now. So in a few years' time, I
It's
won't be
been white for
needed.
a long time, Kojo.
It has been. Then I decided to follow up with it. Now I think one of my best AI tools that I use would be ChatGPT itself. And I use it, I pretend chat is a human being. So I chat with it. I ask questions, I get my answers, I do investigate on the answers that I've received. And when I realize I understand what ChatGPT is telling me and what it's telling me makes sense and is basically saying what I'm saying or whatever, then I present that or pick some of that and put it in my work. So basically I'm using AI to work now. And it's enhancing things that something that would take me like a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks to do now takes me a day or something to do. So don't be afraid of it. Use the tools you have over there and find time to develop yourself in any area. And yeah, I mean that's all I can say. Just don't be afraid of it. Don't be afraid of the future. Step into it.
Amazing, amazing. Thanks for that. Over to
Yes,
you,
sir.
Anna.
Thank you. Our last question is, what is the single most critical area what is the single most critical area Africa most likely to move?
No, he was
Sorry, the
answering the
question was
question.
so clear. Africa's most fixed to move decisively into applied AI
Yeah.
and
Power
connectivity.
connectivity, talent, yeah.
Talent, local data, or governance.
So Kojo, can you repeat the question? I think this was your question, right? So what is the single most critical area Africa must fix first to move decisively? Okay.
Yeah, what is the most
Yeah. Yeah, so that's a very interesting. I think infrastructure is important, right? And when I said that the boat has sailed for foundational AI is because of our lack of infrastructure. But it's there. It's there. I'm not saying it's there. It's just that it's not there at the price point that is, practical, right? For the sort of use cases that we've seen. So I think infrastructure is important. Data centers, data, network bandwidth, that type of thing. So I think that's the first thing. We're lagging a little bit there. If we fix the infrastructure problem, the next thing is capability, right? Raw talent.
Yeah.
Okay. I think, again, we're not going to wait. Nobody's going to come and save us, right? So we might not have infrastructure, but we might be able to bring talent to the table. You see? Because some countries have infrastructure, like the UAE, but they haven't got the volume of talent, right? And UAE gets talent from everywhere in the world. UAE wants to be the second AI superpower behind America, right? And they've already signed a deal. It's already happening, right? But they will need the power, the manpower to power that superpower. The US has the volume. China has the volume, right? UAE is to 8 or 10 million people, right? So I think where Africa can play if we've missed the boat on the infrastructure or we're a bit lagging we cannot miss the boat on the talent, because by 2030 apparently we'll have the youngest population. Is it under 25? Mavis, you know the numbers, right? So the talent play for me is the secret weapon for Africa, right? We're going to have all these young minds coming out of university in their thousands, right? How can we harness those young minds at pace and at scale, right? And then how can we put those young minds at play globally, not just in Africa, because we're lagging, right? Because if these young minds go and solve the problems globally, when Africa is ready, 50% of them will come home, right, to do it in Africa, right? So those are my thoughts on it. Infrastructure, we have to. That will take time, but as we're doing the infrastructure in parallel, let's create the mechanisms, the pipeline, the structures to grow talent at scale. Yeah. And I'm personally working on a project, and I'm sure a lot of you on this call will hear or see it soon. John Kojo, I'll reach out to you since you joined me here to share that with you. But I'm working on something exactly in that space, right? How do we harness the young talent on this call, right? How do we take them from novice to expert in AI in 12 months? How do we then connect them to global opportunities? How do we find them mentoring to accelerate that capability development, right? We've come up with a nice model that we're polishing. So watch this space. If you're interested to know more, reach out to me via Drive to Inspire. Those of you that know, I'll reach out and share what we're building, right? So the time is now. The time is now. The opportunity is there. We can all see it. We've been given something on a silver platter, right? This is the next gold rush. If in 10 years we're having this chat and we're still scratching our heads, then God bless us. So with that, I will hand over the mic to our esteemed host.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Frank. Thank you for your time. It's been an interesting evening. Before we go, please follow us on our social media handles, Drive to Inspire Africa on Facebook, Drive to Inspire Instagram, Drive to Inspire Africa, LinkedIn. And I would like to sum up with some few things that Mr. Frank said in his presentation. We are moving into a global working environment, and so we need to develop a growth mindset. And to be able to do that, we need to discover ourselves and be aware of our environment and how the world is moving, learn and build core skills, specialize and build personal brand, become a problem solver, and future-proof ourselves. Thank you all for joining us. We will be back next month on the 9th of October. It's going to be another interesting topic. So follow us on all our social media handles, Drive to Inspire Africa, Facebook, Drive to Inspire Africa, Instagram, Drive to Inspire Africa, TikTok, Drive to Inspire Africa, LinkedIn. You can also check out our website, www.drivetoinspireafrica.org. And we'll see you next month. Thank you so much. And thank you, Mr. Frank. Thank you for joining us. Everyone, thank you. Thank you. Good night.
Thank you very much for having me. It's been a pleasure being with you. It's been a long one, so thanks for paying attention for the whole time. Appreciate you all. All the best. Thanks, John. Thanks, Nana. I'll catch
Take
up
care,
with you.
Frank. We'll be in touch.
All right. Bye now.
Okay.
Keep in touch.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, everyone.